does God think that like child cancer is horrific? It seems like you're saying yes.
Yes.
Okay, and what does that mean to God? Does that mean that God has a reason to stop it, or what else would it?
But then, if God stops that, He has to stop everything.
Has to stop. I don't see that. That's not. I don't think that's entailed.
Because there's no sin greater than the other sin. Just that certain.
I'm talking about the child cancer. God can prevent child cancer. God thinks that child cancer is horrific, right? He has a good being wants to eliminate horrific things.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they're not good.
But the way the child got cancer was because of sin.
Fine. Okay, it's because of sin. But, now I'm not so interested in why there's childhood.
Going back to what you said, why doesn't God stop that? You said, right?
Well, no, but you've added an extra component here. You actually admit that God thinks that children dying from cancer is horrific. And now that puts into question his goodness if he doesn't stop it, or his all-powerfulness if he doesn't stop it. Now, presumably you think God does have the power to stop it, right? Or to cure cancer. After all, Jesus cured many diseases, right?
Danny.
But so now, why wouldn't, if a good being can, why wouldn't a good being eliminate something that he finds horrific?
God said he will stop it, but he's going to stop it.
I was going to get that.
Yeah, let me say this. Danny, God said that he will stop it. Now, does it make God a failure? Yeah, well, Danny, does it make God a failure if he doesn't stop it?
If he wants to stop it, then yes, it makes him a failure.
If he wants, but the thing is, if he stops it, again, he has to stop everything. That goes against free will, because free will is the choice.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't entail. Look, if God gets rid of cancer, it doesn't logically follow that then he has to stop all murders. It just does not.
Okay, but what is cancer in itself? Is it a sin?
No, cancer is not a sin.
Going back to Adam and Eve, when all the choices they made that they brought into this world was one of genetic defects.
Those are the effects of sin, and that's what God
finds. Sin. If it's an effect of sin, it becomes a sin then.
But God finds the effects of sin horrific, so He has a reason unto Himself.
But then, if He stops that, it's not that one sin is greater than the other. I'm going to stop this, so this doesn't happen.
We're not talking about sin anymore. We're talking about the effects of sin, right? So like disease.
So is the effect of sin a sin in itself?
No.
What is it then?
It's something that's presumably at least undesirable to the person that's afflicted, right? And on your account, horrific to God, but doesn't have to do with a human doing something. We don't give people cancer intentionally, at least, all right? Or at least there are cases of diseases where it has nothing to do with volition, except maybe God's volition, okay? And so I'm just...
Lance,
even if we set aside cancer, we have people die in earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. There's all sorts of cases
natural or evil.
With the way the world is that has nothing to do with human action.
Yeah, Lance. Let me respond to what you guys said. Would you guys be okay with Praise adding to the conversation? I'm sure he's biting his nails and he's going crazy over there.
I'd like to keep it just the four of us, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. At the end, towards the end for the last one.
Yeah, if he wants to put his input, that's fine.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right, so Praise, you'll get your chance in the last 20 minutes. All right, Praise, because I know you're probably sweating.
Can I just say one thing?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has cancer inside them. Would we agree on that?
We have. Well, when we're diagnosed with cancer, okay, so there's a sense in which you could say yes, and a sense in which you could say no. We do have cells that do
turn into cancer.
Yeah, but I think when you get a diagnosis, there's some kind of implication that's it's uncontrolled, right?
Okay. So where I'm going with this is because of the choice that was made in the garden that this happened.
I have no problem with that.
This is how I would answer it. Again, if I'm repeating myself, then I apologize. But because of the genetic defect and the sin that enters into the world, unfortunately, some people are going to get cancer and perish without Christ, or they're gonna move on to the next life. And some people get cancer, and it's gonna be a testimony to God that how he survived it. Now, if you're gonna ask me why would he pick some and not others?
But what matters is if God thinks that it's horrific or unfortunate. Because the second that you think that God believes that it's unfortunate, then he has a reason unto himself to do something about it.
Man, you want me to jump in here? You're gonna continue.
If God believes that what you're saying, I'm sure I'm going to answer that God also believes killing someone is wrong. I'm sure I'm going to answer that God believes lying to someone to corrupt them is wrong. So then we have to eliminate everything and we will have no human beings.
Look, it just doesn't follow that if you want to get rid of them.
if you're answering me one thing that God thinks is wrong, yes, but God also thinks all types of sin are wrong. It's not that one sin is greater than the other.
Let's just focus. Look, the point is that it's not going to follow. Well, although I see where you're coming from, that if he chooses to eliminate cancer, why wouldn't he eliminate malaria? Why wouldn't he eliminate other things? Like, I get that, okay? But strictly speaking, there's no logical entailment that if God eliminates cancer or chooses to eliminate cancer, that he eliminates malaria, right? You need more premises for that. But the point is that if you find if an all good being finds something horrific, then it seems like he has a reason unto himself to do something about it.
Yeah, you want to respond to that, Manny? You want me to respond? And so Lance unmute himself. Go ahead.
I was probably going to ask a question, but it probably won't be a problem. Well, oh yeah. So we live in a fallen world, and that's why we see this. But here's the thing: if we take God out of the equation, does cancer and all that still exist?
Well, I'm an atheist. I think that stuff exists. Yeah,
it still exists, right? So where's the issue when we say that, when we speak of God and put him back into the equation, saying that we know that we're in a fallen world, we know that we're going to see this, and we know that when that person goes, that he's going to Christ?
I'm not so sure I understand your question. Sorry.
So if we're trying to say, well, God could eliminate this, right? Or if God can eliminate it, then it cannot be a God.
Well, no, I'm just saying that if God has...
And that I put that into the wrong synergism, I guess?
Yeah, look, we have to do some kind of assumption about the character of this being, right? Mm-hmm. Presumably, it's not like an empty mind. God has a set of desires or values that we might even share with him, right? I think you and I find child cancer to be horrific. Does God have that value? And if he does, then me, you, and God all have at least some type of reason or motivation to do something about it. But you and I are not in the position to do anything about it because we lack the power to eliminate cancer. World cancer. We just don't have that power. But God,
can I say something before Lance goes, and then we'll allow Lance to cook?
Yeah.
Look, Danny, we already answered that God doesn't like the idea of cancer. Now, we said God will stop it, but he's allowing these things to happen as a result of the free will of two persons where sin entered the world. God promised. Let me finish, Danny, and I'm gonna prove you my point. It is a matter of opinion, right? Because what you're sharing is your opinion. It is your opinion that you believe God should stop it now. I am saying God is not a failure if he stops it later, because God promised to stop it later. Now, if he promised to stop it later and it doesn't come to pass, then I will sit with you, Danny, and say God is a failure and he is responsible for everything that has happened. But God has allowed a universe to run. There are consequences for our actions. I broke this down in the macro level and the micro level. There are things that happen as a result of humanity's free will. And God said he will put an end to it at the end. It is your opinion that you say that's wrong. He should do it now. But if God said he's going to do it later, I see nothing wrong with that, especially when what he promised was salvation.
All right. I think that I think it's God. I think God and I share the same opinion, though. I think that
he's just going to stop it later.
So
you want it now.
It's
God
not just
later.
It's not just my opinion. It's God's opinion that cancer is horrific.
But he said he'll stop it later. So what's the problem?
Yeah, but if it's horrific, there's a reason to stop it now.
Well, if he said he's going to take care of it. If I tell my dad, yo, Pops, I have an issue, and he says, I'm going to take care of it in 3 days. And I'm going, no, I want you to take care of it now. It doesn't make my dad any less good if he still takes care of it 3 days later. So God,
I think it would. Hold on. If your dad was literally on fire screaming and you're like, look, I could get the fire extinguisher and stop your screaming torment right now, but I'll take care of it in a few days. I think you'd be an awful person if you did that. So I think God not stopping cancer right now is bad by God's own lights, which is why I don't think there is such a being.